Does anyone still use the 7mm Remington Mag? We're going to talk about it on today's episode of Ref Shop Outdoors. Howdy folks, welcome back to Ref Shop Outdoors. Today, I was thinking about this old cartridge, and it's kind of losing steam and popularity, but a lot of people still use it. The 7mm Remington Mag. So, a little bit of the history of the 7mm Mag. Came out in 1962, I believe, with in the new Remington 700. And the 7mm quickly became known as the new Western cartridge. It was, I had to write this down, 150 grain bullet was going 3,110 feet per second. So that was more for whitetails, mule deer. I'm sure people used it on elk, but they also came out with a 175 grain bullet at 2,860 feet per second, which was moving pretty good for that weight bullet in the early 1960s. Now, right away, within the first couple of 10 years probably, and even into I'd say even into the 80s when my dad and uncle were working for an outfitter in northern Idaho, the 7mm Rem Mag was either loved or hated. A lot of if you think about it, at that time, it was almost like the PRCs are considered nowadays. They're like the 6.5 PRC, the 7mm PRC. It seems like they're either loved or hated. It's flashy, new, was back then. And then, of course, the old timers thought, boy, that was a wounder. There wasn't enough lead there. That train of thought is more, I guess, of the Elmer Keith train of thought, I guess. If you don't know, a 7mm is a .284 bullet diameter, so it's like 280. I know I'm being Captain Obvious to a lot of people, but so it's a little tiny bit bigger than a 270, but not enough to really notice a whole lot of difference, I think. But the case capacity, the parent case, if you want to be real technical, is the 375 H&H mag. But what Remington did to make the 7mm was, now I could be wrong about it, I've heard it different ways. I've heard some people say they necked up the 264 Win Mag, which is a 6.5 millimeter 264. I've heard that they necked down the 338 Win Mag to 7mm, and I've also heard they necked down the 458 Win Mag, which are all, so the 264, the 7mm Mag, the 338 are all necked down 458 Win Mags, which the 458's parent case is the 300 H&H. but or 375H, excuse me. Now, one thing in the 60s, 70s, 80s, like I was going to say, some people said that the 7 Rem Mag didn't have enough lead for elk, was the crappy bullets, I guess, that they had back then. For something going that fast, just your run-of-the-mill cup and core bullet was not getting the job done. There's lots of stories of guys shooting elk and elk getting away, even that were hit. And then you'll get stories of they were able, maybe shoot them in the head, which is pretty common elk hunting technique. But they would find bullets that penetrated the rib cage and disintegrated after only penetrating one lung. Well, elk can live a long time with one lung. So, and that goes back, with my personal experience with Winchester PowerPoints in the 30-06, I tend to believe that because now a deer is a lot different than an elk, quite a bit smaller, not nearly as far through. But with my experience using those 165 grain PowerPoints on whitetail, I lost 2 or 3 that I hit good with those. Even in snow, they didn't bleed at all. So that was what that was kind of a little bit of a hiccup in the early days of the 7 Rem Mag. And to a lot of people, even in 2026, they still consider the 7 Rem Mag to be underpowered, but not having enough lead to cleanly take an elk. Now, to elk hunters out west in Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, it is, for serious elk hunters, it's a very, very popular, although it is losing steam. I looked it up in 2025, it's number 12 in ammo sales. It is losing out to like the 6.5 PRC and now the 7mm PRC. 6.8 Western is not even in the top 15, which kind of bummed me because that's kind of my new favorite cartridge. But, with the Nosler Accubon, the Nosler Partition, the 7 Rem Mag is, it's a pretty good, it's flat shooting. I do know people that use them on whitetails and they just love it. It's just like a poleaxe, when it hits a whitetail with a good, properly constructed bullet. If you put a Barnes TTSX on here, I wouldn't be afraid to take even the biggest Alaskan moose with the 7 Rem Mag. The outfitter I worked for up there, he actually took his first Alaskan bull moose with a 7 Rem Mag. It's not quite as popular in Alaska, but especially nowadays, the 300 mags I think they are always going to be Alaska's favorites, but for guys that still have 7 Rem mags, they still get the job done. They're wicked fast, and with the right, properly constructed bullet, I don't think you'd have any real issues taking anything. Bullet weights are a little light for big moose, or not moose, I mean like coastal coastal brown bears, although it's really not that much lighter than 180 grain bullet in a 30-06, but although for bears most people prefer a 220, so There it might be a little light, but bears are a whole different story. For hoofed game, the 7 rem mag it's a good round. It definitely gives a bullet weight going that fast. There's a lot of hydrostatic shock, which some people say doesn't mean anything. Other people is what say causes that instant lights out. Well, technically it's neither, but I'm more of the boat that more hydrostatic shock causes a more dramatic knockdown. So that's what I have to say about the 7 rem mag. Do I have one? No. But I actually found an old box of this in my brother's farm shop. So I thought I'd just come out and talk about it. My personal experience with it, don't have any. I have seen a client up in Alaska use one, although he ended up using his friend's 338 Lapua to take his moose, but that's a story for another time. So anyway, I guess that's what I have to say about the 7 rem mag. If you've got one, they're still a good round, good caliber or cartridge. So yeah. Anyway, that'll be today's video. I'm Pete Refshaw with Refshaw Outdoors. Keep your powder dry.